PSYC 452, Environmental Psychology, EP, Introduction/Relevance Personal Space and Territories Crowding Noise Cigarette Smoking. PSYC 452, Environmental Psychology Outline and Course Materials Slums Classroom Dynamics Mining Management of the Environment and Ghana-Specific Issues. Introduction Reading/Study Guide Definition/Meaning History Focus Relevance Indigenous Environmental Conservation. Definition/Meaning of Environmental Psychology The study of the interaction between human behavior and the physical surroundings, Barron and Byrne, 2003, the study of the effects of urban noise, pollution, crowding, attitude towards the environment and human use of space, an interdisciplinary study of the interplay between human behavior and their surroundings, natural, physical, social, built and the psychological settings/environment History of environmental psychology The first published study in E.P. was by Baker and Wrights in the 1950s. E.P. became an academic field of study and research in the late 60s and early 70s focuses mainly on the built, social and psychological environment with reference to the natural as and when necessary. Relevance knowledge acquisition and information sharing legislation, enforcement and prevention, for planning and projection purposes for better management of the environment for the development of alternative sources of students to add to the list, seek clarification, etc. Class discussion/deliberations on the relevance of EP with emphasis on Ghana-specific context. Indigenous environmental protection/conservation practices Traditional methods used to preserve the environment in Ghana include declaration of certain forest as belonging to the gods. No swimming in rivers/streams during certain period within the year. Students are to come out with traditional means of preserving the environment and discuss why the traditional methods are no longer effective in contemporary Ghana. Personal space reading/study guide meaning/definition types in nature/relevance applicability in Ghana. Personal space illustrations with a very close person, a family member/a friend, stranger and a stranger. An individual's preferred distance from others during social interactions, at social settings, the physical and psychological space surrounding a person which she treats as if it was part of him/her. An invisible space surrounding an individual. Types of personal space intimate, the closest of physical contact/space kept by two or more persons. Usually maintained by spouses, romantic boy-girl friends, mothers/fathers and their babies, and among younger siblings it allows for and permits close body contact, such as touching, close hug/embrace, kiss, etc. It is function of cultural norms and related issues. Types of personal space. Personal, it is the second closest contact kept by two or more persons in a social context. Mostly maintained by older siblings, friends and other related relationship. It allows for and permits some level of body contact/touching, such as holding of hands, restricted embrace, limit on level of touching. It depends on socio-cultural norms and others. Types of personal space. Social/public, usually kept during social gathering and business setting with persons of varied background who may or may not be familiar with one another. It is the third and last of the social/physical space/contact kept by two or more persons adopted in both formal and informal settings, e.g. during meeting, conferences, etc. Discussion/reflections. Students to share their experiences and observations on personal space. Comments, questions and discussions with particular reference to their applicability with and among their cycle of friends, in their communities and at the national level. Students must take particular interest in these and endeavor to adhere to them, especially when they travel to other societies/cultures. Territory reading/study guide meaning/definition. Territorial markers/behaviors. Types functions/relevance applicability in Ghana. Territory/territorial markers a space owned and used by an individual or a group either temporary or on a permanently. These spaces include one's room, house, compound, office, desk and chair, car park, etc. Territorial behavior/marker is any act meant to indicate to another person that a given space belongs to someone/another person. Territory markers items used for territorial makers/behaviors differ from one setting to the other. E.g. in school libraries it may be a book, bag, jacket, etc., while that for a plot of land include fence of various types, notice, etc. Territorial makers may also vary from one society to another and by extension from one location to another. Types of territories: primary, a space owned, controlled, identified with, and used exclusively by a person or a group, e.g. your room, house, etc. Secondary, a space shared by two or more persons where no one has an exclusive right except by special or prior arrangement. Public, space and or facility open to all who wish to avail themselves with it, usually on availability and first come, first use basis functions. Personal space and territories serves as guide for the use of space and thus regulates social interactions and enhances social order and privacy, facilitates claim to ownership and possession of space. Serves as avenues for withdrawal and for reflections, etc. Allows for self-expression and identity applicability. Students to share and discuss their observations as far as the use of space and territorial markers are concerned. Comments, questions and discussions with particular reference to their applicability in homes, classrooms, libraries, plots of land, parking spaces, etc. Students must take particular interest in these and endeavor to adhere to them. Reading/study guide definition: objective and subjective theories. Causes, effects, the way forward. Subjective, experiential state arising from interaction of high densities of people with other social and environmental variables. Choi, et al. 1976. Physiological state of discomfort and stress associated with wanting more space than is available. Objective, space in relation to number of persons and or objects, e.g. number of persons per room, persons per a house and structures per a given space. Theories of crowding: sensory overload, Milgram, 1970. Too much information than it can be processed. Density-intensity theory, Friedman, 1975. Crowding is a function of magnitude/degree loss of control, Baron and Rodin, 1978. When one has very little or no control over it. Attribution, Wurchel and Teddy, 1976. Perceived to have been caused by someone else. Causes of crowding: rural-urban migration/drift, disparity between population growth and infrastructure development. High cost of rent, non-enforcement of regulations and laws of settlement, culture orientation and in-group support, concentration of socio-economic activities in one area. Causes of crowding: students to discuss the above factors in details and also bring out others not listed for further discussion. Those with practical experiences are encouraged to share with colleagues. Students may undertake a cursory study/interviews in crowded settlements in their locality to gather additional facts on the ground. Effects of crowding: students are to find and read the citations below and also look for new ones on the same/similar topics and review. The old citations were selected for a purpose carried out at the early stages of the course as an academic field at the tertiary level. Read both the old citations and the current ones you have located. Compare the findings and draw your conclusion: similar or they differ significantly. Experimental and Naturalistic Studies of Animals, Calhoun, 1962, Christian et al., 1960, Effects of Crowding Studies in Prisons, Gies, 1985, Studies of College Students, Barron et al., 1978. General Effects. Affects performance of complex task, Klein and Harris, 1979, associated with poor living conditions, sanitation, social infrastructure, etc. Altman, 1972, loss of privacy, high stress levels, culture moderates. Some of these effects: the way forward: education, formal and informal law enforcement, economic empowerment and affordable housing. Proper layout: expansion of existing facilities, relocation of some essential services, birth control, community services, instead of custodial sentences, provision of basic amenities in the rural communities. Discussions/reflections: students to discuss further the studies on both humans and animals and the extent to which findings from animals can be extrapolated to humans. Students to discuss the environmental, health and psychosocial effects of crowding with emphasis on crowded areas in Ghana during cholera and other infectious outbreaks. Reading/study guide introduction: definition, subjective noise and objective noise. Sources/causes of noise. Effects of noise: the way forward. Introduction/background noise is usually an urban phenomenon. It is one of the leading environmental nuisance. Road transport noise is the most prevalent. More than 40% of the world population is exposed to noise above 60 dB. EU, 2013. 0 dB is the softest sound the healthy human ear can detect, and gun a noise from religious activities is the most common in residential areas. EPA 2009. Definition/meaning unwanted and or offensive sounds which unreasonably intrudes into our daily activities. EPA 1997. An irrelevant competing stimulus which limits the sensory capacity and produces physiological arousal. Chavez 2014. Any level of sound which is disordered or irregular, producing an unpleasant sensation that interferes with the ability to hear it, is annoying, unwanted, stressful, and damaging to the ear. Definition/meaning noise is measured in decibels, dB. The instrument used to measure noise is called dosimeter, noise level meter. In general, any sound above 60 dB during the day and 55 dB during the night is considered as noise. What is noise also depends on the location/zone in relation to the permissible level. Sources of noise * broadly divided into indoor and outdoor. The individual snoring, Hudspeth, 2007, household/domestic, e.g. barking dogs, etc., neighborhood/community, e.g. ceremonies, etc., commercial, music from drinking spot/bars, etc., transport, road, air, rail and water, industrial/construction, from equipment, etc., natural, thunder, etc. Sources of noise, Kant, transport. Road, emanates from tooting of horns, old engines especially of heavy-duty vehicles. It depends on the traffic flow, location of road and the nature of the road. Air, results from energy required to, especially during takeoff. It is also a function of the location of the airport, frequency of flight and type of aircraft. Sources of noise, Kant, industries, comes from engines of heavy-duty equipment. It is a function of location and the type of equipment use. Construction arises from engines of heavy-duty equipment, and it is also dependent on location and the type of equipment use. Discussion/reflections. Students to discuss the subjective and objective definitions/meanings of noise. Students to discuss the sources of noise with emphasis on the ones that are most prevalent in their localities. Discuss the type of noise individual students are guilty of and whether, in their estimation, their neighborhood and the cities are generally noisy. Permissible noise levels. Zone permissible level: day-night, residential areas, 55-48, educational/health facilities, 55-50, residential with light commercial, 60-55, purely commercial, 75-65. Light industrial, 70-60, predominantly industrial, 70-70. Studies on effects of noise. It depends on level, dB, frequency and duration. Studies of two schools in different locations in Los Angeles, USA, Cohen et al., 1981, learned helplessness.